The House will come to order. Please join Representative Pico in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Gregorio, please call the roll.
Representatives Amabile, Bacon, Baisley, Benavidez. Representative Benavidez. Representative Benavidez is excused. Burnett, Byrd, Bockenfeld, Basenecker, Bradfield, Caraveo, Representative Carver, Catlin, Cutter, Doherty, Duran, Escar, Exum, Froelich, Geithner, Gonzalez Gutierrez, Gray, Representative Gray. Representative Gray is excused. Hanks, Herod, Representative Herod. Representative Herod is excused. Holtorf, Hooten, Representative Hooten, Jackson, Representative Jackson. Representative Jackson is excused. Judah, Kennedy, Kipp, Larson, Lontine, Luck, Representative Luck. Representative Luck is excused. Lynch, McCluskey, McCormick, McKean, McLaughlin,
Good morning.
Michelson Janae. Representative Michelson Janae. Representative Michelson Janae is excused. Mullica, Neville, Ortiz, Pelton, Pico, Ransom, Rich, Ricks, Representative Ricks. Representative Ricks is excused. Roberts, Sandridge, Sirota, Snyder, Soper, Representative Soper. Representative Soper is excused. Sullivan, Tipper, Catone, Valdez A, Valdez D, Van Bever, Van Winkle, Weissman, Will, Williams, Woodrow, Woog, Young, and Mr. Speaker.
Fifty-nine present, 6 excused. We have a quorum. Representative Pico.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Journal of Monday, May 10th, 2021, be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
You have heard the motion that the journal be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes still have it. The motion is approved. Announcements and introductions. Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, members. House Appropriations was hilarious today, and I am proud to tell you that we today used our nonpartisan staff to serve as judges on the best joke of the day. But someone tried to bribe them. One of our members attempted to bribe our judges today. With that, I'd like to award the winning joke of the day to Representative Will. Please come down to the well and offer us your joke.
Congratulations, Representative Will.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, so did the bribe influence the judges? Or?
Representative McCluskey.
No, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It did not, but please share your joke.
I can't remember which one it was, but I talked on our water bill that we were going to pay for it, finance it through hydrogen bonds. And then my other one was, what did the little Scottish dog say when he saw the wolf? He was terrified.
That's pretty.
And Representative Will, here's your prize. I'm sure you know nothing about the bribe.
You know, members, we had a long talk about decorum earlier, and that seemed a little weird. Regardless, you hold on to that just in case there's a fine later on, or maybe that's to pay back that fine that you felt like was unfairly levied against you, Representative Will. All right, Representative Exum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've got the approval from the Majority Leader to be off starting tomorrow afternoon through Friday.
So approved. Further announcements and introductions. Representative Weissman.
I'll miss you too.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. This is an announcement for Judiciary Committee. We have two bills on our calendar today. We'll be hearing Senate Bill 71 followed by House Bill 1300. You heard that right. Only two bills. Don't get used to it. See you at 1:30.
Representative Lontine.
So this is good news for the Health and Insurance Committee. We have no bills on the calendar for today. I just wanted to tell you that so to make sure you weren't hallucinating when you looked at the calendar.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to announce that leadership has excused me for Thursday, May 13th in the morning. Thank you.
So approved. Further announcements and introductions. Seeing none. I believe the next order of business is third reading of bills. Mr. Gregorio, please read the, oh, no. Yep. Third reading of bills. The next reading of, Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1214.
House Bill 1214 by Representatives Weissman and Bacon, also Senators Coleman and Lee, concerning increased eligibility for procedures to reduce collateral sanctions experienced by defendants.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1214 on third reading, final passage.
Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I need to ask for permission to offer a technical third reading amendment.
All right. It is customary for us to display it. Are you okay with that, Representative Weissman? Let's display it, and please explain. Representative Weissman.
Okay, so members, this was caught by the eagle-eyed folks in our nonpartisan drafting office. This just changes a reference so that we are referring to the classes of offense in that part of the bill with a little bit more precision. We have 3 levels of misdemeanor, 2 levels of drug misdemeanor. You'll see that we are removing sort of more generic language and stating more precisely in that part of the bill what kinds of misdemeanor are eligible in that paragraph, M2 and M3, or DM1 and DM2. So no substantive change is intended, but that has to get the reference more correct as we send it over to the Senate. So I would ask for permission and then support.
Is there any further discussion on the motion before us, which is offering permission to offer a third reading amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is to provide permission to offer a third reading amendment on House Bill 1214. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members please proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
By myself up here, I vote yes.
That is true. You're not alone, though. We're all with you. Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Please close the machine. With 48 aye votes, 13 no votes, and 4 excused, permission is granted to offer a third reading amendment on House Bill 1214. Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members, for permission. Permission having been granted, I now move L16 to House Bill 1214.
Is there any further discussion on L16? Seeing none, the amendment has been properly moved and displayed. The question before us is the adoption of House Bill L16 on House Bill 1214. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members please proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Please close the machine. 44 aye votes, 17 no votes, and 4 excused. L16 is adopted to House Bill 1214. Majority Leader Eskar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the repassage of House Bill 1214 on third reading, final passage as amended. I screwed that up.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1214 on third reading and final passage as amended. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Ortiz. Please close the machine. With 40 aye votes, 21 no votes, and 4 excused, House Bill 1214 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1150.
House Bill 1150 by Representative Judah, also Senator Gonzalez, concerning the creation of the Colorado Office of New Americans.
Majority Leader Eskar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1150 on third reading, final passage.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1150 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. I will fine myself $1. Please close the machine. With 39 aye votes, 24 no votes, and 2 excused, House Bill 1150 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1278.
House Bill 1278 by Representative Exum, also Senator Sonnenberg, concerning meter requirements for the boards of special districts.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1278 on third reading, final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1278 on third reading and final passage. See no further discussion. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members, please proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Bradfield, Judah, Tipper, Van Bever. Representative Judah. Please close the machine. With 48 aye votes, 15 no votes, and 2 excused, House Bill 1278 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the Senate Bill 191.
Senate Bill 191 by Senator Donovan, also Representatives McLaughlin and McCluskey, concerning the removal of residency requirements for student members to serve on the Board of Trustees for Western Colorado University.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Senate Bill 191 on third reading, final passage.
See no further discussion. The question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 191 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members, please proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Oh, yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Duran. Please close the machine. With 48 aye votes, 15 no votes, and 2 excused, Senate Bill 191 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1277.
House Bill 1277 by Representatives Valdez D. and Will, also Senators Liston and Pedersen, concerning definitions for reimbursement of final disposition expenses of eligible assistance recipients.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1277 on third reading, final passage.
See no further discussion. The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1277 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members, please proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Kipp, thanks. Please close the machine. With 61 aye votes, 2 no votes, and 2 excused, House Bill 1277 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1291.
House Bill 1291 by Representatives Van Winkle and Exum, also Senator Winter, concerning allowing an agent of an insurer to obtain certain branded titles for vehicles that have been declared a total loss.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1291 on third reading, final passage.
Question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1291 on third reading and final passage. See no further discussion. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members please proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Please close the machine. With 60 aye votes, 3 no votes, and 2 excused, House Bill 1291 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Members, it's getting a little loud in here. It is third reading. Thanks. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1287.
House Bill 1287 by Representatives Gonzalez, Gutierrez, and Soper, also Senator Gonzalez, concerning measures related to permitting parties to certain proposed legal relationships under Title 14 Colorado Revised Statutes to satisfy certain requirements without having to appear in person.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1287 on third reading, final passage.
See no further discussion. The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1287 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members please proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Gray. Please close the machine. With 43 aye votes, 20 no votes, and 2 excused, House Bill 1287 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to Senate Bill 142.
Senate Bill 142 by Senators Pedersen and Donovan, also Representatives Caraveo and McCluskey, concerning removing certain restrictions related to abortion services and in connection therewith removing the requirement that the services be performed only at certain healthcare facilities and removing the requirement that only a physician perform the service.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Senate Bill 142 on third reading, final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 142 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members please proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote? Sorry, I didn't hear you. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Please close the machine. With 39 aye votes, 24 no votes, and 2 excused, Senate Bill 142 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. The next order of business is General order, second reading of bills. Nope. Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the following bills be made special orders today, May 11th.
One second. Majority Leader.
Oh, we got to read all those, huh?
Mr. Gregorio.
Committee on Appropriations, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends following House Bill 1094 be amended as follows and be so amended and be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1198 be amended as follows and be so amended and be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1208 be amended as follows and be so amended and be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1261 be amended as follows and be so amended and be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1273 be amended as follows and be so amended and be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1243 be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1266 be amended as follows and be so amended and be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1268 be amended as follows and be so amended and be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 15 be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 21 be amended as follows and be so amended and be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 58 be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 64 be amended as follows and be so amended and be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 82 be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 101 be amended as follows and be so amended and be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 115 be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 136 be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the following bills be made special orders at May 11th at 9:33 a.m. House Bill 1007, House Bill 1194, House Bill 1215, House Bill 1257, House Bill 1094, House Bill 1198, House Bill 1208, House Bill 1243, House Bill 1261, House Bill 1266, House Bill 1268, House Bill 1273, Senate Bill 15, Senate Bill 58, Senate Bill 64, Senate Bill 82, Senate Bill 101, Senate Bill 115, Senate Bill 136. And members, it's my understanding that you should have been notified about this. Also, the list will be up here as well. Apparently, I missed Senate Bill 21 as well. My apologies.
Seeing no objection, those following bills will be made special orders on May 11th at 9:33 a.m. Representative Weissman. Seeing no objection, you've heard the motion. Seeing no objection, Representative Weissman will take the chair.
The committee will come to order approximately. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there's a request to read a bill at length. Committee amendments will not be read as they are printed and in the bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen up here and on your iPads as well. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the majority leader or assistant majority leader as the case may be, and the coat rule will dissolve and blow away on the wind like the mist of a cool spring morning. With that, Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1007.
House Bill 1007 by Representative Sullivan Ortiz and Senators Danielson and Rodriguez concerning the state apprenticeship registration program in the Department of Labor and Employment.
Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are we going to the Appropriations Committee first?
First, yes, sir.
Sure. Rep. Sullivan, go ahead and move the bill and both committee reports and then proceed.
I move House Bill 1007 and the Appropriations Committee report.
Representative, for the record, please move the BAL report as well.
And the business report?
Very good. To the Appropriations Committee report.
Okay. I'm sorry, you're muffled.
Sorry, I'll take this off. To the Appropriations report, please, Representative.
Thank you, sir. We went to appropriations and they appropriated money to this, getting this agency started, and we ask for your support.
Is there further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question is the passage of the Appropriations report. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Ayes have it. The report is passed. To the Business Committee report, Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the Business Committee, we had some vigorous conversations, put through a couple of amendments where we, let's see, where we start. We issued certificates of registration. We brought in, changed a organizational word there. We sunsetted the committee to, or the agency to 8 years, and we ask for a aye.
Is there further discussion on the Business Committee report to 1007? Seeing none, the question is the passage of the Business Committee report. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The committee report is passed. To the bill, Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a bill and a concept that's been talked about and has been worked on for several years. A variety of educational opportunities are necessary in order to maintain and increase the vitality and dynamism of the Colorado economy. Whether Coloradans choose to pursue employment in the building and construction trades or work in another industry, they and their employers are benefited by structured apprenticeship programs and resources which are an investment in our state's future. The establishment of a state apprenticeship agency will provide a point of contact to collaborate with the Department of Labor. They had a news release on February the 17th stating that in the past decade alone, the registered apprenticeship programs have jump-started the careers of more than 1.9 million U.S. workers in over 1,000 occupations, ranging from traditional careers like electrician, carpenter, plumber, and newer occupations such as software developers, wind turbine technicians, cybersecurity analysts, hotel managers, pharmacy techs, and 5G technicians. It is vital that Colorado establish the department in order to oversee, promote, and assure the quality of apprenticeship programs that will prepare Coloradans for the jobs and the economy in the future. 25 other states have a state apprenticeship council, some of them for over 30 years. This is a good program, and I ask for an affirmative aye vote on this.
Representative Ortiz.
Bottom line, members, of what this does is the way that I think of it is I always try and relate it to what I know. So I was a combat aviator in the Army. There was a very clear track of what was expected of me and how I moved up to the next level. Creating the state apprenticeship agency is going to allow our state to be more mobile and more agile compared to what goes on in DC, and to create a thriving economy based around apprenticeship programs here in the state of Colorado. So it's making us more agile. Not only that, it's going to allow us to take advantage of advances in technology and in industries in a more timely manner than we could get out of DC. So not only is this a good bill for that, this is also going to be a source of information and resources for other apprenticeship programs. Basically, they're a partner that's closer to boots on the ground and ground level. So for all the reasons that my co-sponsor stated and these reasons that I'm stating now, this is critical that we implement this now as we're starting to build back stronger, and I would urge an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, members, I do rise in opposition to this bill. I understand what the bill sponsors are trying to achieve, and I certainly appreciate I think the intent of this. It's certainly good-natured, good-willed here. But I did want to read briefly. I won't get into all of this, but I did receive a fact sheet of sorts from an industry group that was opposed to this particular bill. And this group is made up of a variety of skilled trade associations, companies, and employees. And I'll just read it from here. We have employer-based and multi-employer apprenticeship programs with over 2,000 apprentices statewide. We have concluded that this bill is not necessary and would unduly complicate the administration and approval of apprenticeship programs in Colorado. According to them, the reason that they see which is trying to be fixed in this bill, is that the reason stated by the proponents of this legislation were to reduce the current backlog for new programs and to ensure compliance of existing programs and secure federal grants. But in their estimation, there is no federal backlog. Programs currently are approved within weeks under the current system. Currently, there are over 480 different apprenticeship programs in Colorado, as noted in the fiscal note analysis and CDLE reporting. In discussions with the state director of the Office of Apprenticeship, they have a timely process to get a registered apprenticeship program developed and processed, which normally takes about a week. The SAA board will have to meet regularly to ensure that the same level of service that currently is being offered to apprenticeship programs and they're approved, right? So it's already being done, so we don't need this. Apprenticeship expansion grants cannot be used to set up SAA or to pay for the committees. They have to be used to develop new and expand existing apprenticeships. Colorado has 4 grants currently for apprenticeships right now with no SSA. This legislation, I'm sure had significant stakeholder input, but according to this organization here, they feel that more needs to be done, and certainly more input with from the largest apprenticeship programs in the state, and those that utilize the majority of apprentices should have been done as this bill worked its way through the process. So, members, there's much more. I know I have colleagues here that want to speak to the bill, so I'll go ahead and get out of the well here. But I do rise in opposition. I do hope that there are at least some amendments that could help make this bill a little bit better. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion on House Bill 1007? Rep. Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I actually had planned to run a couple of the amendments that we had run in Business Committee, but the Business Committee report passed very quickly. So I will just speak to the bill at this point, which is, and also say to the Senate, I hope this is one that the Senate is able to do some work on and improve this piece of legislation, because right now, as Representative Williams stated, it is completely unnecessary. And I believe it's also the wrong time, because this members is $1 million general fund. This is $1 million of taxpayer money every year. That's not going to be going to roads and bridge, not going to be going to teachers or para or healthcare or anything else that is absolutely necessary. It creates a new state agency. In Colorado, we already have 480 apprenticeship programs across our great state, and we have heard from many of them, including the state's largest apprenticeship programs, that this new bureaucracy is totally unnecessary, and it actually will make things harder for hardworking taxpayers and for those who already are in one of those 480 apprenticeship programs that are working very well, all by themselves without this $1 million of state bureaucracy hanging over their heads. So with that, I will ask for a no vote, and I will also ask for the many senators that are listening to go to work on this bill and do some good for the state of Colorado.
Rep. Van Winkle, don't we all in the House wish the Senate listened to us more rigorously? Is there further discussion on House Bill 1007? Rep. Ransom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to make a couple of points based on the language in the bill. And we heard about the board that would be put into Colorado and that this program exists in multiple other states. But one of the points I was told by some of the industry groups is that members of the board are not subject to confirmation as they are in other SAA states. And then the piece that really got to me, especially as we are trying to bring our economy back. With the number of programs Colorado has now, this bill will actually create obstacles to employment by potentially bogging down curriculum approval and losing touch with rapid changing technologies. You've heard me say it before, folks. When things are working fine, we do not need to bring in more state bureaucrats to try to tell people how to do it right. At the current time, I support apprenticeship programs. I like having them. I like people having the option to use apprenticeships programs and go into them, but we don't need state people to come in and start telling the apprentice groups how to do it better. So with that, I urge a no vote on the bill.
Rep. Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate my peer for coming up and expressing concerns about making sure that we're informed about what this agency is going to do. And to that, we'd like to move L014.
Okay, one sec, Representative. Let's get it up on the screen. All right, L14 is displayed and in focus. Please go ahead to L14.
Yep, so just to create greater accountability and transparency, what this is going to do is implement an annual report to the executive director with apprenticeship data disaggregated by age of population, race, gender, veteran status, disability, and industry. So basically what this is going to do is provide greater transparency and understanding as we move forward and as the agency moves forward. This is something that's going to allow the state of Colorado to be more agile with its apprenticeship programs and its economy because we're putting out the best workers. We should be able to roll and chew gum at the same time. We're passing plenty of great bills around healthcare and supporting small businesses. This is another piece of that puzzle. I urge an aye vote on this amendment.
Okay, is there further discussion on L14? Rep. Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just haven't seen this amendment before, so catching up to speed on it, and I'm reading as I'm talking here in the well. But it appears that to the executive, to provide an annual report to the executive director. Remind me who that so the report, I believe it will come from the State Apprenticeship Council that's created in this, and it's to the director of, who's the report go to? I'm sorry. Okay, see, the executive director of the Department of Labor. Okay, could we get that? Typically, reports also come to the legislature, especially because, and I also need a reminder of this topic, which is in committee we had several discussions over the sunset of the bill, and the committee had a couple different amendments drafted. None of them was perfect. I believe there was a sunset put on in committee. Just given the fact that the committee will sunset someday, I think it'd be good to keep the legislative body informed as to what's going on in this. So maybe that's already in the bill or maybe not.
Okay, Rep. Sullivan. The question is L14.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, as we reported in the committee report, the sunset amendment had been passed in committee, and we spoke about it here, and the body passed.
Okay, is there further discussion on L14? Seeing none, the question is the passage of L14 to 1007. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Ayes have it. L14 is passed. Back to the bill 1007. Is there further discussion? Representative Pico.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in opposition to this, not because I don't see the value of having an apprentice program, and I appreciate a structured program. I went through that in flight training myself, but this is redundant. These programs already exist. Industry already runs these. We don't need another layer of state agency to oversee something which is already in place, and it's just a waste of money. I urge a no vote.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1007? Rep. Carver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I received numerous letters from both industry groups and individual businesses in my district on their concern about how the state apprenticeship board and would be set up. They were concerned. They had been unaware. They said, we've never had any problems with Federal Department of Labor. There's no issue that they're aware of with responsiveness or backlog. And they were concerned that the interests, the individual apprentice programs that had been set up to fit a particular business, that flexibility and ability to customize an apprentice program that works for that particular sector would be overridden by the new state agency in charge of this. And so for those reasons, and also just anytime there's a politically appointed board that is making legal decisions, that is compliance with certain standards, I don't think that that's best practice. I think Colorado should move from having political boards and their designees making legal determinations to administrative law judges making those determinations under the APA subject to court review. So that was a point that I brought up during the business committee. And for those reasons, I am a no on the bill.
Okay, Rep. Benavides.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, my reading of the bill is that, yes, the councils will review some standards, but any decisions will be made by the agency, by Department of Labor, once it's referred to them, and they have the ability to use an administrative law judge to make that determination, and those determinations, once it's a final agency decision, is subject to judicial review. So these are not determinations that are being made by the councils per se. They will set standards, and that's something that CDLE, with having 480 apprenticeship organizations right now, I think really need. So I think this is an important piece of the bill. Thank you.
Rep. Carver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Rep. Benavides. And perhaps I'm misreading the bill. On page 15, there is the section on hearings where these legal determinations are made and where a decision will be made on whether to continue registration of the apprenticeship program, deregister the apprenticeship program, or impose conditions on the apprenticeship program. And in lines 8 through 10, it specifies that it is the SAA which designates the hearing officer. So that is, if I am understanding the bill correctly, and sponsors, others, please correct me if I'm wrong, that is, it is the board, a politically appointed board, which is going to designate the hearing officer. An administrative law judge is not specified. And ALJs operate independently. They are lawyers. They have their own set of rules that apply to ensure that they are independently assessing the facts and applying the law. And they have some insularity from the agency bureaucracy to give them that objectivity. Now, I grant you that under this same section, we are The hearing officer is conducting the hearing in accordance with the Administrative Procedures Act, the APA. And over on page 16, that hearing officer's decision is what's called a final action under the APA and subject to court review, and that is all good. That is all as it should be. I believe the deficiency here is, quite frankly, throughout many Colorado state agencies, but that I think we're allowing politically appointed boards to make these do the internal initial decision on legal compliance and determine sanctions, which ending an apprenticeship program can be a pretty severe sanction for a business. I just think that's not good practice. You're going to get better quality decisions if you insulate that decision from politics. When you have a politically appointed board, and the politically appointed board is appointing the hearing officer, it is inevitable that politics will enter in at some point. So if you want to insulate the decision from politics and have it be a straightforward legal analysis, as quite frankly, also the ability of the hearing officer not to face retaliation from the politically appointed board if they disagree, right? They disagree with what the politically appointed board recommendation or view is. They say, no, we've looked at the facts, we've applied the law. Here's the determination. You will only get that independence and objective application of the law through an administrative law judge who cannot be removed at will by the politically appointed board. Now, that's just the reality. So I am hopeful that I will very shortly have an amendment that might accomplish just this very thing. But I would invite the sponsors or the very able Representative Benavides comment if I have misstated anything, if I'm misunderstanding the nature of the hearing officer as referenced in the bill.
No. Okay, is there further discussion, Rep. Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I did want to just briefly take a moment to read another letter that we had received in opposition to this, and I'll go ahead and keep the company's name out of it. I'm sure everyone was already emailed or copied on it. But it starts out with, Dear Legislator, I need to reach out to you because my company has reviewed House Bill 21-1007 and we have significant issues with the bill. We've reviewed the details of the bill with a number of members, our employees, and affected parties, and have concluded that this bill would unduly complicate the administration and approval of apprenticeship programs in Colorado. Creating a new Type 1 state-run state apprenticeship agency will also while also creating two separate boards to oversee existing and new apprenticeship programs in Colorado is a needless expansion of government regulation over a workforce that has served the needs of Colorado. We understand and support the growing need and recognition for quality apprenticeship programs that serve the economic market and workforce training needs in Colorado. While we recognize that the current program may not be perfect, it is a system that has consistently worked for many of the programs currently approved, and we question the reasoning behind the issues stated as to why it is important in this moment to change the process of a well-established and successful program. This letter shares our concerns about House Bill 21-1007 and offers alternative solutions to addressing apprenticeship growth and oversight without the need to form a new agency and add costs to state-level administration. And members, I'll just read sort of their issues with the bill as the current language is, and I won't get into what could be. But currently, they say the current issue with the bill The bill establishes a state apprenticeship agency that will manage two different boards, a state apprenticeship council and an interagency advisory committee. Currently, Colorado allows federal guidelines through the U.S. Department of Labor Office of Apprenticeship after abandoning the previous state-run SAC due to a lack of state funding to sustain the cost of administration of the program. With the current administration, we believe that the federal program will continue to prioritize workers in trades important to the economy in Colorado and our country. The proposed SAC board makeup does not represent the current environment of successful programs here in Colorado. Colorado has a number of programs both through associations and employees, and Type 1 level boards should reflect the regulated community as it exists, proportionate to the people actually doing their work. And members, I'll just run through this and I'll go ahead and end my time here. But the current envisioned proposal of 18 members, 6 non-voting, are 5 members of employee organizations. This is union and non-union. 5 member employee organizations, which are synonymous with unions. 2 public members, and 6 of those being non-members. And the question that they asked here is this truly representative and reflective of the makeup of organized and non-organized workers in Colorado? I think it's a good question that we should consider, and I would ask that you consider it as we continue this debate. Thank you.
Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I have stuff to read too. The federal government has assigned one person to oversee an entire region of apprenticeships, including approving new apprenticeships and monitoring existing ones. It is unknown to the state what industries are applying for apprenticeships, how they are recruiting and retaining apprenticeships, how long it takes for an apprenticeship to finish the program, for an apprentice to finish the program, whether a program is out of compliance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The federal government provided express authority to the states to take on this responsibility back in the 1970s and even provided sample legislation that would comply with federal law. Colorado used to have a state apprenticeship council, and as the representative from El Paso County say, they didn't fund it any longer. This is why we're trying to bring this back, and we're trying to put the funding in there so that Colorado can decide how to run Colorado. And I ask for your support.
Okay, Rep. Carver, Van Winkle. Who wants to go first? Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll just be brief. I will remind the body that we have several pieces of legislation that I won't speak on specifically that are going through the process, actually even by some of the bill sponsors of this bill, that allow people to get back to work faster, that will put money into things like workforce development, just transition, other things, that actually put people to work for better or worse. It puts people back to work. This is creating a barrier to entry, a barrier to work. And so I'll ask for a no vote.
Okay, Representative Carver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I offer amendment L022 and ask that it be displayed.
Okay, Rep. Carver, 1 sec. There we go. Please go ahead to L22.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I already spoke to what this bill does. Right now, the way the bill would set up this the state agency that oversees apprenticeships is you have the SAA, which is the State Apprenticeship Agency. And if an issue arises so that you have 2 politically appointed boards, and I'm not saying that as a pejorative. We have many boards that are appointed by either the governor or the governor's designee, in this case, the SAA. But they are political appointments. And so when the 2 boards that are created under this bill, when they request a hearing because there is an issue with an apprenticeship program, whether additional conditions need to be imposed, whether it needs to be decertified because of the belief that it doesn't comply with the standards. But when a hearing is requested by either of these 2 politically appointed boards, the SAA follows the procedures spelled out for hearing on pages 15 and 16. And the way the bill is currently written, the SAA, who is the executive director, shall appoint, that is, the agency executive director shall appoint the director of the SAA. So the SAA now appoints the hearing officer. Again, I believe best practice would be when you are making a determination of compliance with legal standards, in this case, legal standards for apprenticeship programs, that it is a better practice to have those legal decisions, those administrative hearings, overseen by an administrative law judge. And that's all this bill does. It substitutes the hearing officer being appointed by the SAA to specifying an ALJ shall make this determination. All the other provisions on pages 15 and 16 still apply. And with that, I ask for an aye vote on the amendment.
Okay, the question is L22. Is there further discussion on L22? Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I stand in support of this amendment. It's a smart amendment, and it's really something that adds it's not a political amendment. It adds us an additional level or a more extensive level of oversight. I think I've received some emails about this bill and some more bills about the politicizing of this thing, and I think what this amendment does is it takes it to a kind of outside the group and has a more of like a third party that evaluates or makes these decisions, more than an independent evaluator and a higher level evaluator. So I think it adds a more stringent level to this bill that I think some of our constituents would prefer. And it really doesn't dilute the essence of the bill. This is something that just actually makes the bill a little bit better. So I think that this is something that we all could get behind. I ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Madam Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can understand the purpose and the intent behind this amendment, that it ensures that everything seems like it's in a perfect box. But in reality, what the current bill requires is that the state agency assign a hearing officer. And that hearing officer has to conduct the hearing according to the State Administrative Procedures Act. And every party to that hearing can be represented by counsel. And then, once a decision is made by that hearing officer, it's subject to judicial review. So the only thing that's different is saying it's an administrative law judge as opposed to a hearing officer. Members, most agencies, including CDLE, for unemployment hearings, all kinds of other hearings, are done by hearing officers, not ALJ. In this state, we have, in Department of Personnel and Administration, we have a division of administrative law judge hearing officers that are utilized by state agencies for these matters. If all of these other precautions weren't set in place in this bill, I would wholeheartedly agree they need to be there. But everything is there except the individual being an ALJ as opposed to a hearing officer. And I think the other protections ensure that these matters are acted on timely. This is a process that is used by many agencies, including CDLE, in DPA, we used a hearing officer to determine whether a procurement was done properly when there was a protest to a procurement. That was done by a hearing officer that could go to court, and we went to court on some of those. But it wasn't done by ALJ because of the timeliness involved. And this is a process that has been used. I think all of the protections associated with these types of final agency decisions are set in place in the statute, and because the parties can be represented by counsel, it's a hugely, the sponsors have gone overboard to ensure that the rights of all parties are protected in this process. And again, it's subject to agency review, and this kind of review can be under what's called Rule 108. It can be an almost immediate hearing to a judge on a final agency determination. So I don't think this is necessary, and I would urge a no on this amendment.
Okay, the question is L22, Rep. Carver.
Thank you, Rep. Benavides. There is a whole statutory section that governs ALJs. And why does it make a difference whether the hearing officer is appointed by the executive director of the SAA versus it being an ALJ? You take the politics out. You also have the ALJ as an attorney who is bound by certain judicial standards specified in the statute that provides additional guardrails that it will not be a political decision. It will be a decision based on law and fact, with the additional proviso that the ALJ cannot be fired by the state agency. A hearing officer who perhaps is appointed and makes a decision not to the liking of the SAA may never get appointed to be hearing officer again. Right? So this is for states and other agencies that over time have substituted ALJs for politically appointed hearing officers, where the ALJs are protected from political pressures and are applying the law based on the facts. That is a better practice. It's good government. And so, quite frankly, while I very much appreciate the APA procedures and all the other safeguards, this makes this procedure better. And therefore, I think it's an improvement and would ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion, Rep. Holtorf?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In this particular case, when our ranking member in the Judiciary Committee does offer an amendment and speaks to the merits of the legal weight of this language, I think it behooves all of us to listen very closely. This particular bill, what the amendment sponsor is trying to do is just neutralize the impact of politics, the impact of any type of persuasion, and to truly have an objective and neutral position. We have across the street in the State Services Building many, I think it's on the fourth floor, these administrative law courts and these judges that preside in those courts. We have the capacity for this already in the country, in this state rather. We have the capacity to apply this particular amendment. And these administrative law judges do have a very unique ability to analyze things on the pure merit and legal basis of that particular case. And I really think that my colleague who offered this amendment, her concerns are not unfounded. I think they are based in her many, many decades of legal practice and experience. And I really think that all of you should consider this amendment. It's a good amendment. It's a thoughtful amendment. It's based on her legal experience and her explanations. And so I'd encourage an aye vote on this amendment based on the merits that have been presented. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there further discussion on L22? Seeing Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to be sure that the bill sponsors, because this hearing section of the bill is actually a very key section of the bill, so of course you don't have to, but I would like to hear from the bill sponsors, is this good, is this bad? How does it affect your stakeholder process and things like that? So if we could just hear it's good or bad or something, because it's a very serious amendment offered by a very serious legislator on a very important topic and a very key piece of the bill. So let's just hear from the bill sponsors, yes or no.
Okay, is there further discussion on L22, Madam Speaker Pro Tem?
Thank you. The comments I made were after discussion with the sponsors, and they endorsed those comments. So.
Is there further discussion on L22? Seeing none, the question is the passage of L22 to 1007. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Noes have it. L22 is lost. Back to the bill. 1007. Is there further discussion on HB 1007? Seeing none, the question is the passage of HB 1007. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. No. Ayes have it. 1007 is adopted. Mr. Gregorio, kindly read the title to House Bill 1194.
House Bill 1194 by Representatives Tipper and Ricks, also Senator Moreno, concerning creation of the Immigration Legal Defense Fund and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Representative Tipper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1194, the Appropriations Committee report, and the Judiciary report.
Thank you. To the Appropriations report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In appropriations, we clarified some language that the administrative costs were to be the lesser of $15,000 or 5%, and that it was a continuous appropriation, and I ask for a yes vote.
Is there further discussion on the Appropriations report? Seeing none, the question is the passage of the Appropriations report. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. No. The report is passed. To the Judiciary report, Madam Vice Chair, Rep. Tipper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In Judiciary, we made a change that this agency, or this program would essentially be housed in CDLE instead of Department of Human Services, and I ask for a yes vote.
Okay, is there further discussion to the Judiciary Committee report? Seeing none, the question is the passage of the Judiciary Committee report to 1194. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Committee report is passed. To the bill, Representative Ricks.
Thank you, members. House Bill 1194 will establish the Colorado Immigration Legal Defense Fund, and it's going to be a grant fund for Colorado nonprofit legal service providers to give pro bono legal services to individuals in the deportation proceedings in Colorado. Immigration detention remains the only legal procedure in the nation where someone can be detained without the right to a government-funded lawyer if they cannot afford one. The existing system forces those without representation to confront an unjust and complicated system alone, whether they are refugees, asylum seekers, or children. So this fund is very important to helping people like myself, my family, who moved here because of unrest and political problems within my native Liberia. People flee here because they're looking for a better life, seeking a place where they can be safe. My family moved in 1980 because of political unrest. I ask for your yes vote.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on House Bill 1194? Rep. Soper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's an honor to serve with you.
Likewise, sir. Please go ahead.
I have a couple of questions for the bill's sponsors. In reading the bill, I was trying to determine what organization would meet all of the requirements here. And there's a couple of entities that come to mind that are certainly doing these particular services, and I just want to make sure that I'm reading it right, that they would be included. First of all would be Catholic Charities, and then whether a law school's legal practice clinic or immigration clinic, whether currently in existence or started in the future, would be covered. And that's my main question.
Rep. Tipper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm shooting from the hip. I believe so. That's certainly the intent. And I know that we had included provisions in the bill, which is ironically missing from my bill folder. So I can circle back with you, but that is the intent, is to allow entities like Catholic Charities, which does great work in this space, and legal clinics that do great work in this space to offer representation to these individuals.
Rep. Soper.
Thank you. And I have one more question. I should have asked them together. I noticed that there's only 100,000 in the fiscal note, and just kind of thinking about the way legal proceedings are, that's really a drop in the bucket. Do you have plans to, once this fund's established, to seek a lot more funding, or is this something where it's just a small niche, or to fill a void that's currently out there? Just kind of curious what that is.
Rep Tipper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it. Yeah, it is a drop in the bucket for the actual need. The idea is seed dollars, essentially, and there are nonprofit entities that will match the funds, and the hope is to grow the fund. So it would be my hope and my desire to grow the fund, but what this bill does is just sets this one time seed fund to start the program.
Okay, Rep Carper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was a no vote on the bill in committee and am still a no vote. In the Q&A with some of the organizations that would be the recipients of the grant funds, what became clear is that there is not, and I defer to the bill sponsors, there is not language in the bill that would restrict the grant recipients in how they prioritized different categories of those that they would represent in deportation hearings. So in other words, there's nothing in the bill that would tell the nonprofit grant recipients that are doing the representation work, don't utilize Colorado taxpayer money in a deportation hearing if the individual in question has a criminal conviction or whatever the background. So, and of course, my view is that this is not an appropriate expenditure for state taxpayer dollars. But in the Q&A, I just want to make clear that the bill itself does not specify any eligibility criteria other than deportation hearings. Further define that as far as restrictions. So just wanted to make that point on the House floor, and certainly defer to the House sponsor if I misunderstood the Q&A with some of the witnesses during the committee hearing.
Rep Tipper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative, for your thoughtful questions. What we know is that individuals who are detained, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're put into removal proceedings, but individuals that are detained have a 10 times higher likelihood of succeeding on the merits of their case if they have an attorney. So immigration proceedings are the only the only proceeding in which you can detain the body, the person, without the right to counsel. It's an aberration in all our other systems of law. So the bill creates a fund that would give access to, frankly, a small number of individuals detained to have legal counsel. The answer to your question is yes. It does not impose requirements, and the reason behind that is we don't want to be judge and jury before an individual has the opportunity to vindicate their legal rights in this country. And in the case where you have someone with, let's say, a severe criminal history, the likelihood is an attorney is going to look at that case and say, there is no recourse for you. What you should do is essentially negotiate a plea to either expedite your removal or voluntarily remove yourself, which is a whole separate proceeding. So it injects efficiency into the system, even in those what I would consider worst case scenarios. So the nonprofit would essentially be the one making that determination, and maybe it's a quick consultation rather than someone who sits in a detention center that has no hope for actually vindicating rights in the U.S. or doesn't have legal rights to be in the U.S. They would, rather than staying for that long period of time, I think you enhance the efficiency into the system. So the answer to the question is yes, but for the reasons that I explained.
Okay, Rep. Soper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Tipper, I have just a couple other questions to clarify my reading of the bill. Drawing on kind of my past experience, I have watched immigration court proceedings. They're very fascinating, and I know that one of the challenges is to get the client actually to show up, which is a major hurdle to overcome, and I know this doesn't address that. But I also am aware that there's two different legal representations that can occur in an immigration court, and one doesn't require that the individual be a bar licensed attorney, and wondered if there's anything here. You say legal representation, but there's nothing that talks about that the attorney actually need to be bar licensed, because I do know that there are times when you can have a non-attorney representing an individual before an immigration court, and wondered what you would say to that.
Representative Tipper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative. If I remember correctly, and it's been a while since I've worked in this area of law, you have to get permission from, I think it's a BIA, in order for a non-attorney, and there's a very high standard in order for that non-attorney to actually engage in the practice of immigration law, and I think it's limited to certain categories. So it might be like filling out applications. I don't actually remember the specifics on that. What I would say is that I don't know that we address it specifically in the bill. Again, I can circle back to you on this, but the idea is really these entities, and frankly, the flexibility in the bill is actually to serve some of the rural parts of the state that might not have a Catholic Charities office, for example, but have immigration attorneys that might partner with that entity, is to give that flexibility. So to the extent that those entities have individuals who are not licensed as attorneys, but have been given that special permission from the federal government to practice in this area, I would say that we would allow that representation to continue. Again, the idea is to increase the efficiency. So if the federal government has said this is a good use of human capital, then nothing in this bill takes away from that.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1194? Representative Buckenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
Honored to serve with you, sir.
I have a question for Representative Rickson Tipper, and I may get schooled here, and I'll take the risk of doing that. But,
she has a way of doing that.
Yes. When it comes down to someone being detained in a jail, the argument always is that this is a civil issue. And my question, how many civil issues do you have a right to representation on? If you're being deported, isn't that also a civil issue? And do you have a right to an attorney in a civil matter? We know you do in a criminal matter. But the argument is this is one of the only few cases where you don't have legal representation from somebody being accused. And I just want to better understand, if we have an argument on one side that says this is a civil matter, why do we feel that there has to be representation like it would be a criminal matter?
Representative Tipper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the question. It's a good one, and I'll try and take it easy on you. There are, the distinction is accurate. Federal civil immigration law is what we're talking about here. But there are cases in our civil law where we do appoint attorneys. So for the ones that I can think of, and enough other folks have ideas, are, for example, termination proceedings for parents. So there's this concept that there are these types of cases that rise to a really high level that we acknowledge that an individual is at a severe disadvantage if they don't have a lawyer advocating on their behalf. So in parental termination cases, and I think in a lot of like visitation, parental right types cases, you do have an attorney that the state pays for with taxpayer dollars. And I would venture to guess that's also regardless of your immigration status. So the recognition that there are types of cases that are so fundamental to our core, and in fact, what we do know is that we have children appearing before immigration courts in this country and in Colorado that do not have attorneys. And so when you think of an individual who is an adult, who doesn't speak potentially the language, doesn't understand the culture, and then we say not only are they not an adult, they're a 3 or 4-year-old child. We heard this in committee, as you remember. These are the types of cases that we want to ensure are represented by lawyers.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1194? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1194. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 1194 passes. Madam Speaker Pro Tem Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Assistant Majority Leader. I move to lay over House Bill 21-1215 for 2 bills, so it will be heard after House Bill 1094.
That is a proper motion. Seeing no objections, House Bill 1215 will be laid over until after House Bill 1094. Mr. Gregorio, please. I will put us into a brief recess. The committee will come back to order. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1257.
House Bill 1257 by Representatives Garnett and Neville, also Senator Garcia, concerning the recognition of veterans in relation to certain parks within the state capitol complex.
Representative Neville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1257 in the committee report.
We have the State Affairs Committee report and the Appropriations Committee report. Can you move both of those, please?
I move the State Affairs and the Appropriations Committee report.
Thank you. To the Appropriations Committee report. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, members, for your attention to House Bill 1257. In the State Affairs Committee, we ran an amendment to
Mr. Speaker, we're on the Appropriations Committee report.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we appropriated $10,000, and I would urge an aye vote on the Appropriations Committee report.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Appropriation Committee report is passed, is adopted. To the State Civic, Military, and Veteran Affairs Committee report. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And in the State Affairs Committee, we ran an amendment to move half of the bill out of the legislative process, out of respect for the CBAC Committee and CDC and the resolution process. As all of you know, General Rose was a war hero and one of the leading war heroes in Colorado in World War II, and we want to highlight his service to the state by building a statue of him in Lincoln Park. Hopefully, once this bill passes, we'll change the name of the park as well. And but the best process to do that, working with the chair of CBAC, Representative Lontine, was to go through CBAC, which they had their hearing last week, to go through CDC, which their hearing is, I think, this week, and then for the body to pass a joint resolution to do that. So we decided to go through the normal process, and that's what the amendment was in the State Affairs Committee, and I would urge an aye vote.
Representative Lontine.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just want to express my appreciation to Speaker Garnett for working with me on addressing the concerns that I had around process. The end result, I think, will be the same, but we wanted to make sure that this went through the proper channels, and I appreciate his work on that, and I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the State Affairs Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the State Affairs Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The State Affairs Committee report is adopted. To the bill. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L005 and ask for it to be displayed. Yes, sorry. My first time in the well.
Amendment L005 has been properly moved and is now displayed. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, as many of you know, the parks, the adjoining park to the Capitol complex, right across Lincoln, in between Lincoln and Broadway, is called Lincoln Park. And there are actually some portions that are called Liberty Park. And it's a little confusing in terms of what to name the park. And there is a constituent of mine who is a Vietnam veteran who has served our country courageously, who lives close to the Capitol and cares deeply about this park. And he's one of those constituents, and you know, there are members of every community across the state like this, where he goes down almost every morning and walks the park, makes sure that he's picking up trash, making sure that the park is worthy of the memorials and the statues in which embody the park. And he cares deeply. He calls DPA. He has DPA on speed dial, and he calls them when there's a light out in one of the lights down in the park. And so 2 years ago, former State Representative Shoemaker, who also lives in my district, when he served, he wasn't from the same party as me, but he's somebody that I got to know very well through knocking doors and getting to know my community through serving House District 2. He came to me and he was like, listen, Mr. Drago, who is our constituent, he would love to rename this park for it to really symbolize the veterans who have served this great country, for the name of the park to really embody the memorials that are in the park. And can we please work on changing the name to Colorado Veterans Park? So I said, of course. I mean, listen, that's what we do. We are here to serve our constituents. And through that process, working with the State Affairs Committee and working with others, there was some concern with removing the name Lincoln from the entire name of the park. And is there a way that we could, both recognize Lincoln Park and recognize that the memorials in the park are Veterans Park? And so I worked with both the folks in my district and with Representative Neville and with Representative Bockenfeld and others to come up with this amendment, L005, which I believe allows us to both maintain the name of the park, which President Lincoln was one of, if not the best president that this country has ever had, and at the same time recognize that the Fallen Heroes Memorial is going to be built and unveiled on Memorial Day this year, and all of the statues in the park are for our veterans. And so in a way, this is to bring both sides together, and I would urge an aye vote on L005.
Representative Neville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, when I was asked to be on this bill, it was really for the General Rose piece, but this piece made some sense to me because Since I've been down here, we've always referred to this plot of land, and this is across the street from Lincoln, as Veterans Park. When they went to go put signs up, we realized there was a statute in place that called it Lincoln Park, and like the speaker said, there was another piece that was called Liberty Park, but the only piece in statute was Lincoln Park that was actually put in place because of just the location to Lincoln Avenue. But then we ran into an issue too. When I started looking at it, we would have created the same problem had we just had Veterans Park, because much like Lincoln Park, there's another Veterans Park here in Denver. And so this will actually make that park exclusive. There is no Lincoln Veterans Park. It honors the sacrifices of the veterans, because every single statue, memorial down there is recognizing a veteran, but it also doesn't get rid of our history and then still gives the location of it. And so I thank the speaker for working with us on the amendment and the State Affairs Committee, and I urge an aye vote.
Any further discussion on Amendment L005? Representative Bockenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm in support of this amendment, and I ask for an aye vote.
Sorry. Any further discussion on Amendment L005? Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair, esteemed colleagues. I, too, rise in support of this amendment. I think there's a lot of concern about the name Lincoln, which does honor President Lincoln, past president who was key in preserving the Union. This particular amendment keeps the name Lincoln, also with the correlation to Lincoln Avenue, but we know why Lincoln is Lincoln and Sherman is Sherman, and all these other names came from the legacy that is the Civil War and the Union victory during the Civil War and what that meant to this country. Also, I want to talk about veterans' contributions. I think this memorializes and speaks to veterans' contributions. As one of few members that are a member of the Colorado Army National Guard, have served in the Colorado National Guard for many years, we all know that Major General Rose's military service began in the Colorado National Guard. That is significant. An armored officer who served his country and made the ultimate sacrifice for Constitution and country. I think this is very fitting. I support the bill sponsors completely, and I think this amendment is a great amendment to do the things that I mentioned as we move forward with this legislation.
Any further discussion on Amendment L005? Okay, on the amendment. Okay, Representative Valdez D.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the Speaker and Representative Neville for bringing this amendment forward. This is a good amendment, and I appreciate it. You have my support on this amendment.
Seeing no further discussion on Amendment L005, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L005. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment L005 is adopted. To the bill. Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1257? Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members, for the support of that amendment. I really do think that this, working together, we have found a way to memorialize that park that is very, very fitting. I just wanted to highlight that the park is home to the Colorado Tribute to Veterans Monument, the Colorado Fallen Heroes Memorial, the Joseph P. Martinez Monument, all of which commemorate Colorado veterans who have faithfully served our country. So I do think that this is a way to thank Mr. Drago, who I hope you're watching right now, for your service not only to this country, but to this state, to the city, to the park, and to the over 62,000 active duty military personnel in Colorado and the 371,000 military veterans. So thank you for your service.
Representative Bockenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In committee, I was one of the no votes in committee because I was concerned about the legacy of Abraham Lincoln. And with that amendment, as I mentioned, I did support the amendment, and I do support this bill. I learned a lot about General Rose. I didn't know much about General Rose, and a little research showed that this man was definitely worthy of being recognized in his state. and he's had a tremendous amount of accomplishments. And I'm always in support of the veterans and recognizing the veterans for our freedoms that we have today. I would like to say a few words about Abraham Lincoln because his name remains on this park. President Lincoln became legendary for his visits to hospitals and battlefields during the Civil War. He even came under fire at the Battle of Fort Stevens. He is the only president who ever faced enemy combatants, and he is often referred to as the last casualty of the Civil War. And I'm proud that the name of Abraham Lincoln remains on this park, and I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Hanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And like Representative Bockenfeld, I was a no vote in committee because I was concerned about the name changes and any confusion. The amendment cured that, so I'm a enthusiastic supporter of this bill. I wanted to talk a minute just about General Rose. Very interesting legacy. He joined the National Guard, as Rep. Holtorf mentioned, underage, so they tossed him out. He had to wait a year and then joined again. But he was killed in Germany, and he's buried in the Netherlands. And I just wanted to make the point that if you have traveled to Europe and never gone to an American cemetery, I would highly recommend it on your next trip. I would tell you that the folks looking after our buried and our fallen soldiers overseas do a job that is probably exceeds the beauty and the gallantry of the cemeteries in the United States. They are truly phenomenal to go look at, and you won't be disappointed. I wanted to read a brief comment about General Rose, too, if I could, and it is brief, I promise you that, as long as I find it here. His biographers, Stephen Osed and Don Marsh, this is a Wikipedia thing, easy to find, but they called him World War II's greatest forgotten commander. And Andy Rooney, a World War II correspondent, and perhaps most of us know him in here, worked with 60 Minutes, had a brief comment on General Maurice Rose, that he was a leader down where they fight. Not all great generals were recognized. Maurice Rose was a great one and had a good reputation among the people who knew what was going on, but his name was not in the headlines, as Patton so often was. Rose led from the front of his armored division. With that in mind, and seeing how easy it is to catch a little bit of history on some of these people, I support having him commemorated down here and hope that it inspires somebody to look him up and recognize what the highest ranking military officer killed in the European theater, what his story was, because it truly was remarkable. So I ask for a yes vote on this bill. Thank you.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1257? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1257. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 1257 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1094.
House Bill 1094 by Representatives Doherty and Van Bever, also Senators Zenzinger and Rankin, concerning the transition of youth in Colorado's foster care system to successful adulthood.
Representative Doherty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1094 and the Public Health Report and the Appropriations Report.
To the Appropriations Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Appropriations Amendments written report just made some changes to define terms and created some consistent language and created some clarity as far as the bill is concerned.
Any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the Public and Behavioral Health Committee report. Representative Van Beber.
Thank you. I move the committee report 001. And
I'm sorry.
Sorry. This amendment, the appropriations.
Representative Van Beber, you have an amendment. So can you please move your amendment and ask for it to be displayed?
Just as part of the report.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay, sorry. To the bill, to the committee report.
Thank you. This committee report also clarifies some language, sets some determination as far as ensuring that state law complies with federal law and that county and state information are aligned as well.
Is there any further discussion on the Public and Behavioral Health Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Public and Behavioral Health Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The committee report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Doherty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill establishes 2 new programs, the Foster Youth and Transition Program and the Foster Youth Successful Transition to Adulthood Grant Program in order to assist older foster youth and successfully transition them to independence and adulthood. These services provide support for education, employment, financial management, housing, emotional support, and assured connections to caring adults for older youth in foster care. Thank you. I urge a yes vote.
Representative Van Beber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you've all heard on the floor before, I've had my own foster children, and over the course of 20 years of education, I've taught hundreds of children who are in foster care. A need for a program like this acknowledges the fact that children in foster care exhibit the kinds of needs that are deep and unique to their circumstances. They, throughout the course of their lifetime, are working to thrive, but they can't do that without the support of their local entities, and they will fail due to continued neglect as they age out in the foster care system. We take for granted that these children, regardless of their physical age, have spent the bulk of their childhood in fight or flight mode. They may reach the age of 18, but have certainly missed the appropriate societal, relational, interpersonal, and fundamental skills of virtually every example from daily living that you could possibly think of. As data has shown us, meaningful human growth comes with time spent in supportive and healthy relationships with others. We learn from cradle to grave how to live, how to function each day, be it good or bad. So as a foster child ages out at 18, these processes make it so that our foster children, our foster teenagers, can make the choice to receive further services until the age of 21, should they need that support. We save money in the end in the state of Colorado when we help them on the front end. I ask for a yes vote.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1094? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1094. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 1094 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1215.
House Bill 1215 by Representatives Holtorf and Ortiz. Also Senators Heisey and Lee, concerning the expansion of the Justice Reinvestment Crime Prevention Initiative and in connection therewith the creation of a small business grant program for formerly incarcerated persons.
Representative Ortiz.
Madam Chair, I move 1215 committee reports starting with appropriations.
There is no Appropriations Committee report. There's a Judiciary Committee report.
For 1215.
So you moved the bill and then the Judiciary Committee report?
All right, I move the Judiciary Committee report.
All right, to the Judiciary Committee report. Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the Judiciary Committee, we talked about the importance of the bill. We talked about the strike below that allowed for the expansion of the bill in taking this program and growing it to different parts of the state. As a rural representative, I was very concerned about the impacts to my district and other districts in rural Colorado with respect to expansion of this Justice Reinvestment Crime Prevention Initiative that was very targeted and focused on the urban corridor and the urban centers, and as an attempt to expand and grow this rural-urban divide to get these programs out into the rural communities. We talked about that, and the language that was developed now takes this to Grand Junction and establishes the program out to the western slope, and also takes this program and takes it to southern Colorado, down to Las Animas County, Grand Junction and Mesa County, and now to Trinidad and Las Animas County. So that was a very big part of the discussion. We've taken and nested this language in this program that truly was an effort to make a difference, because we know that the cost of incarceration is upwards of $160,000 if a person is incarcerated, or more importantly and impactfully reincarcerated. So to change that trajectory, we thought this program that invests in those people, in their job skills, in training, in integrating in small business, and doing the things that keeps people from returning to incarceration would make a difference, and the cost savings by investing in this would be returned back to the state tenfold.
Is there any further discussion on the Judiciary Committee report?
I have one amendment.
Representative Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're going to run a couple amendments to this report, and we're going to start with L002, and I'm going to allow my co-prime sponsor to speak to that.
Can we move the amendment? Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move L002 to House Bill 1215 and ask that it be displayed.
That is a proper motion. Let's wait for it to be displayed. Thank you. Amendment L002 has been properly moved and is before us. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This particular amendment is a technical amendment that makes the language fall in line with the strike below language. It specifically addresses there at the bottom in bold, if you look, with respect to formerly incarcerated persons, and it makes a substitution that says justice system involved persons making an appropriation. And the reason this is important as an amendment is there are many individuals that are involved in these diversion programs. In this case, they're involved in the justice system. They may not have been incarcerated because of the diversionary status of their procedures within the justice system, and this allows them to, in fact, participate. And I think that's very important, that so they can be involved in this program to further avoid incarceration.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L002? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L002. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Amendment L002 is adopted. To the committee report, Representative Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L003 to the committee report.
Amendment L003 has been moved and is displayed. Please proceed, Representative Ortiz.
So one of the contentious issues that did come up was the language of pending charges in the strike below. So what this does is it removes the pending charges that was problematic for committee members on both sides of the aisle, and it captures post-trial, so it just focuses on what's going on post-trial.
Any further discussion on Amendment L003? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L003. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Amendment L003 is adopted. To the committee report. Any further discussion on the Judiciary Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The Judiciary Committee report is adopted. To the bill. Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This particular legislation comes out of a request from my district in southern Colorado to try to facilitate the reintegration of these post-incarcerated individuals and help them become productive members of society, and to help them begin the future of their endeavors in society. And there are merits to this program. I think the investment, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the fiscal note here, I think the investment is a worthy investment, but more importantly, the expansion of the program to all parts of the state. I was very troubled as a rural legislator to see that we make large investments in these type of programs in the urban corridor, but then those things don't reach out to the rest of the state. So that's where this began. This particular program and the language does expand this to other parts of the state. With respect to the fiscal note, we're looking at 1.7 million to this program. It does go out in out years. But if you look at that and you truly take that, if we can reintegrate 10 people into society and they don't return back to the Department of Corrections, then that investment has paid for itself. And truly, the pilot program that was done in previous years does show that there is value to this, and there's qualitative and quantitative considerations, but truly this investment for a mere couple handfuls of folks that, or maybe more in future time, that we can keep out of returning to incarceration, I think this investment is a good investment to the future of Colorado and supports taking pressure off the Department of Corrections and also helps people return to a normalcy in their lives.
Any further discussion? Representative Ortiz.
Members, what we have here is trying to make sure that we are not only rebuilding lives, but saving the state money. We spend over $1 billion, $1 billion with a B, on incarcerating humans here in the state of Colorado. The pilot program that was passed in 2017 is showing great success in parts of Aurora and southeastern Colorado Springs. And yes, we are called to be legislators of our district, but we're also to work for the entirety of the people of Colorado. So I'm proud to be up here with my prime sponsor, expanding this to Trinidad and Grand Junction areas. Just to give you an idea of who this impacts, it impacts at-risk and justice-involved youth, parents, homeless individuals, victims of crime, justice-involved adults, victims of domestic violence, victims of sex trafficking, individuals with disabilities, entrepreneurs, educators, and administrators. And just to give you an idea of how successful it's been already, we have 6,000 individuals that have received services. 81% of at-use youth have indicated an increase in their coping skills, resiliency, healthy relationships, and making positive life choices. 90% of the most vulnerable people in North Aurora community, people experiencing homelessness, victims of sexual assault, etc., report feeling safer in their community. 86% of adults have not returned to incarceration. 90% of youth have avoided or mitigated involvement within the criminal justice system. So this is having great success in certain parts of Colorado. It's time to test it in the more rural areas. This is a great reinvestment in the community. I urge an aye vote.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say that I greatly appreciate my partner and my co-prime here, our relationship, even in these recent times, in light of recent circumstances. He's even grown stronger, and I think that that has huge value. And then our desire to continue to help the people across the state with respect to this difficult condition that we have with incarceration. I encourage an aye vote as we reinvest and even further invest across the state in this program.
Seeing no further discussion on House Bill 1215, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1215. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 1215 is passed. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1198.
House Bill 1198 by Representative Judah, also Senators Buckner and Colker, concerning health care billing requirements for indigent patients receiving services not reimbursed through the Colorado Indigent Care System, and in connection therewith establishing procedures before initiating collections proceeding against a patient.
Representative Judah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1198 and the Appropriations Report, as well as the Health and Insurance Committee report.
To the Appropriations Committee report.
Should I raise mine? The Appropriations Committee report approved funds for this great bill this morning.
Any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the Health and Insurance report, Representative Judah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In committee, we had arrived at some changes, and through thoughtful negotiation with the debt collection industry, these changes were brought by stakeholders, and they were able to come to neutral while ensuring strong customer protections. This was evident in the represented changes that address concerns raised by stakeholders to minimize the administrative burden and avoid any unintended consequences. And I, because of that, have two amendments that I would like to move. First, L005.
Please move your amendment and ask for it to be displayed. Representative Judah, can you move your amendment and ask for it to be displayed, please?
Thank you, ma'am. I move L005 and that it be displayed.
That is a proper motion. Amendment L005 has been properly moved and is now before us. Please proceed.
This amendment and the other one to follow are technical amendments. It has some provisions aligning start dates. It also has a change to increase clarity, and one to ensure the hospital lien process isn't impacted by the bill. And I urge an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L005? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L005. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment L005 is adopted. To the committee reports.
I have one more.
Go ahead.
I'd like to move L005 and have it properly displayed.
I believe that's amendments L007, Representative
Oh,
Judah?
7. I'm sorry, 7. L007.
Thank you. Amendment L007 has been properly moved and is now before us. Please proceed.
Like I said earlier, the second of these two amendments, L007, is also a technical amendment and simply has a change to increase clarity so that it aligns with the start dates.
Seeing no further discussion on Amendment L007, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L7. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Amendment L7 is adopted. To the committee report. Is there any further discussion on the Health and Insurance Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Health and Insurance Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The Health Insurance Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Judah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. HB 1198 strengthens patients' protections by updating the hospital payment assistance program signed into law in 2012. First, it will help increase access to affordable health care by creating statewide standards for informing, screening, and billing patients whose incomes are below the 250% of the federal poverty level. And second, it will reduce the frequency of medical bills going into collections by giving Coloradans reasonable and reliable ways to pay medical bills. This increases access to affordable care for patients and reduces the number of unpaid medical bills, helping hospitals and providers as well. And I urge a yes vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion on Amendment 1198, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1198. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 1198 passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1208 to the end of the special orders calendar.
Seeing no objection, House Bill 1208 will be laid over until the end of the calendar. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1243.
House Bill 1243 by Representative Will, also Senators Donovan and Rankin, concerning the establishment of funding for the program to reintroduce and manage gray wolves in the state from sources other than hunting and fishing license fees.
The spirit of Representative Arndt and hello, Representative Will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
Honor to serve with you, sir.
So I don't have a committee report, and I did not need an appropriation.
Would you like to move your bill, sir?
Yes. I would like to move House Bill 21-1243.
To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this bill, it's a great bill. Since the Proposition 114, and that was voted through, and there's going to be introduction or reintroduction of wolves in the state of Colorado, didn't feel it was appropriate that hunting and license fees, our sportsmen pay for that. So run this bill, and basically the bill says that no fees from hunting and fishing licenses can be used to fund the reintroduction of wolves. And as you remember, when we were doing the long bill, run an amendment for funding in the long bill. So we got $1.1 million for the reintroduction of wolves in the state of Colorado through the long bill and that amendment. So this is a good bill. It keeps into the future that none of these wildlife cash fund cannot be used, at least a part of it that comes from hunting and fishing license fees can be used for anything to do with the reintroduction of wolves in Colorado. So I would ask for an aye vote.
Representative Valdez D.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the bill sponsor, Representative Will. This bill, not only when Proposition 114 passed last year, this includes management and funding for programs for implementation for administration. This bill requires that we, the General Assembly, appropriate funding for the Division of Parks and Wildlife for management and best practices and management for our wildlife. With that, I ask for a yes vote. You have my support.
Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Will. This is a great, great bill. It really is counterintuitive to have hunting license fees go to pay for wolf introduction into our state. Because after all, wolves are also an apex predator, just like us as humans. We self-regulate our predatory nature through the paying of hunting license fees, and we have certain seasons. We have an excellent Colorado Parks and Wildlife Division who manages our wildlife. And to have something that's going to diminish the hunt like wolves just does not make any sense to have those fees go to bring in more wolves. So then you're just chasing round and round again. You have fewer game out there, so the quality of the hunt goes down even further. So that's why this is a great, great bill, and I appreciate you bringing this. Thank you.
Representative Hooten.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, I'd just like to say we heard this bill in the Energy and Environment Committee, and it passed unanimously out of committee. And basically the consensus was Coloradans voted for the reintroduction of wolves. And based on that, we all agreed that we should bear the cost of managing that reintroduction and not just put it on the backs of those who pay for fishing and hunting licenses and fees. Thank you. I urge an aye vote.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1243? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1243. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. House Bill 1243 is passive. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1261.
House Bill 1261 by Representatives Catlin and Cutter, also Senators Corum and Janal, concerning the extension of the sales and use exemption for beetle kill wood products.
Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
And with you, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to move House Bill 1261 and the Ag Committee report along with the Appropriations Committee report.
There's only an Appropriations Committee report, no Ag report today.
Thank you, ma'am. That's
so right. To the Appropriations Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we were in Appropriations this morning, and they made an amendment that will allow this to be funded so that we can get this program into place. I urge an aye vote.
Sounds good and well. Any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, no. The Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill. Representative Cutter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is an honor to serve with you.
And with you.
I'm just excited to be on this bill with Representative Catlin. We all know our forest health is incredibly important, and providing this this tax incentive for people to buy pine kill wood products is going to be helpful on a number of levels. And in the words of a really smart man, good bill, vote yes.
Any further discussion on House Bill 12? Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, a brief description. What we're trying to do here is to not charge state sales tax and use tax on beetle kill wood. I don't know if you've seen any of the products out there on the marketplace, but it's very pretty. Red, blue, green stains through the wood. They make nice furniture, very nice furniture. A number of different products that you can use in your home. You should be able to find it at almost any place that you buy lumber. And this is just an opportunity for the state of Colorado to help get some of that dead wood out of the forest and put to good use before it becomes nothing but fuel. I'd ask for a yes vote. Good bill. Vote yes.
Seeing no further discussion on Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I also rise in full support of this bill as well. Yeah, it's a really good bill. Driving back and forth every single week, you just see all of the beetle kill wood on our mountain passes, and it really is just unbelievable. And to be able to encourage and incentivize getting more of that out of there, and to have a little bit of an exemption to be able to do so really is good public policy, and this is really what we ought to be doing. So thank you very much.
Minority Leader McKean.
Thank you very, very much, Madam Assistant Majority Leader.
Chair.
Madam Chair. Hardest work I've ever done was logging, and literally the hardest work I've ever done. Carrying a chainsaw all day and having to skid stuff out and pile slash. But one of the things that makes logging productive and the care for our forest productive is that we had a market for the things we cut. So I was a post and pole logger for the most part. So this is, lodgepole pines and especially kind of dog hair where you're getting the small pieces of fence railing and all that. But the problem is that you need a market for it. This helps develop the market for beetle kill. It helps give an incentive for people to go cut it. It helps give an incentive for mills to mill it. And to be honest, that's what we ought to be doing, right? Is the carrot approach to figuring out how to make sure that people have a viable way of using a resource that we really need people to go harvest. We need them to go harvest it in time. Standing beetle kill only has a certain shelf life on what the use of it is in the forest after it dies. And so we need to get up there, we need to be cutting trees, we need to be cutting fuel out that ends up going to fuel so many of our forest fires. So not only full support for yes on this bill, but in addition, these are the bills that we want to be hearing about so that we're taking care of the problem through an incentive approach. This is a good bill.
Representative Will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I stand in strong support of this bill. We heard it in committee. It's a great bill. We talk about forest management. We talk so much about wildfire and all that. This plays into everything about forest management in this state. This is a great bill, and it is a perfect incentive. So I'm a strong yes. Ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion on House Bill 1261, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1261. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 1261 passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1266 to the end of the special reading calendar. Special orders calendar.
House Bill 1266 will be laid over by motion of the Majority Leader till the end of the calendar. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1268.
House Bill 1268 by Representatives Titone and Will concerning a requirement that Colorado institutions of higher education study potential uses of emerging technologies to more efficiently manage Colorado's water supply and in connection therewith, making an appropriation conditions on the receipt of matching funds from gifts, grants, and donations.
Representative Titone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1268, the Appropriations Report, and the Agricultural Livestock Committee Report.
And the finance report?
And the Finance Report.
Oh, my apologies.
No, there's no Finance Report.
My apologies. I was looking at the wrong one. You're correct. To the Appropriations Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Appropriations gave us some money for the program, so I ask for a yes vote.
Seeing no further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the Agricultural, Livestock, and Water Committee report. Representative Titone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We made a couple amendments in the committee, and we just changed a couple things about how the money is allocated and how it's subjected to review by the legislature. So I ask for a yes vote on that.
Seeing no further, is there any further discussion on the Agriculture Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Agricultural, Livestock, and Water Committee report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The committee report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a amendment. I'd like to move L003 and have it displayed.
Do we have? Amendment L003 has been properly moved and has been displayed. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amendment L003 was something that was brought up. There was just some language in the bill that could have been construed as bad for water trading, and we just clarified that to make sure that we are not in the business of trading water here in Colorado, and that we care very much about the obligations and water rights here, and we just made that clarification to be sure. So I ask for a yes on that.
Representative Will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this amendment addresses the trading of water and speculation. And it's we don't want to get into the buy and dry situation. And that was a concern in committee with this bill, and we got that fixed. And obviously, we don't want any speculation on water and buying of ranches and drying up water and selling water elsewhere. So this amendment takes care of that. And with this amendment, this is a great bill. Ask for a yes vote on the amendment.
Representative Catlin on Amendment L003.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the Ag Committee, we brought up this issue, and the sponsors said that they would bring a second reading amendment, and they have, which I appreciate. They said they would, and they did. So those are the kind of things that we appreciate. The other thing that this did for this bill is it allows us to definitely say that the state of Colorado is going to do nothing to encourage speculation on water futures. The state of Colorado is written in water, yet we've been found by some of the investment firms on Wall Street in New York City, and we've really got to be aware of that. And we don't want any of the small pieces of legislation that we do to encourage anything like that. This piece of legislation will allow us to start being able to track water specifically in a lot more technical way that we haven't in the past. And it also opens doors for us to find out, can we do that? So this is a good amendment. I ask for a yes vote.
Representative Valdez-D. To Amendment L003.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the bill sponsors for bringing L003. As my colleague from Montrose said, we don't want speculation here in Colorado, especially whether it be on the Arkansas River in my district or the Rio Grande, because water is a huge aspect and it's our lifeblood of Colorado. And with that, I thank you for bringing the amendment forward, because we need to continue making sure that water is a priority for our communities and for our district. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion on Amendment L003, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L003. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment L003 is adopted. To the bill. Oh, to tie. Representative Will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this bill really brings modernization into water administration and management, brings us into the 21st century in Colorado. And there's going to be some huge benefits, I think, especially in water measurement and even determinations of how much is going to be available from time to time with remote sensing and those type of things with the bill. It's going to be a good bill, and ask for an aye vote.
Representative Tatone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, we have great universities here leading in water, and we wanted to make sure that they had some resources available to study what these technologies that we have coming about. Some things like in situ sensors, monitoring water quality, satellite telemetry, aerial observations, all of these different things, including blockchain, to make sure that we can have a great accounting of our water. Water is one of the most precious resources we have here, and we want to make sure that we are being good stewards of it. And this technology is going to be the future of how we can manage that water, and this is going to be the future. So we're excited about it.
Representative Will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as my co-prime said, a lot of these technologies already exist in other industries in the state and haven't been used in the water administration. And so with the universities, CU and CSU, this is going to be a great thing to figure out what we can do for better, improved water management, and ask for an aye vote.
Representative Valdez-D.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, bill sponsors, for bringing this bill forward. And as some of you know, Southern Colorado, we're in a drought. We've been in a drought for years, and we want to thank the bill sponsors for bringing this bill because it not only continues to bring tools to manage, but also analyze reports in our water, not only in the San Luis Valley, but in Southern Colorado, all across from southwestern Colorado to the southeastern. And this is a good bill to continue to bring data and make sure that our water is in the forefront for our agriculture, because it is our lifeblood. And we want to make sure that water is a huge priority in the state of Colorado. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to talk a little bit about this bill in regards to, the state of Colorado measures water more than any other state. We measure it coming in, we measure how much we've used, we measure how much is going out. But that's one of the reasons Colorado has been a leader in water law and has set the standard for most of the rest of the western part of the United States. In fact, our law is the basis of their law. But with this piece of legislation, we may be going from bedrock to the jetstones. And I do represent bedrock. I want you to be aware of that, for real. So I'm not sure who represents the jetstones, but when this bill gets put into place and we start keeping track of water, amounts of water that are being delivered, the kind of water that's being delivered, we will be in that new age called the 21st century. So this is a good bill. Vote yes.
Thanks, Fred.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1268? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1268. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. House Bill 1268 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1273.
House Bill 1273 by Representative Cutter, also Senator Kolker, concerning requiring the Department of Education to prepare an annual report related to the total number of school psychologists licensed and employed by a school district.
Representative Cutter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move House Bill 1273 and the appropriations report.
To the Appropriations Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We went to appropriations and they gave us money.
Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Cutter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this bill originally, we were exploring the possibility of drawing down Medicaid funding for school psychologists. But after working with departments for several months on this, it looks like that may actually be able to happen without legislation. So this bill, we took that part out of it, and the remaining piece of the bill is just measuring the number, an annual report on the number of pupils enrolled in schools throughout the state and the number of school psychologists, so we can determine where we stand now prior to the funding becoming available, the impact this new funding will have on mental health supports in our schools, and whether additional funding is needed in the future to achieve the proper goals of mental health support in our schools. It's a pretty simple bill supported by all the relevant departments, and I urge a aye vote.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1273? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption or passage of House Bill 1273. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. House Bill 1273 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of Senate Bill 15.
Senate Bill 15 by Senators Cook and Garcia, also Representatives Ortiz and Lynch, concerning a stipend for veteran service organizations that provide funeral services for honorably discharged veterans in connection therewith, making an appropriation.
Representative Ortiz.
Madam Chair, I move Senate Bill 2115, the State Civic, Military, and Veteran Affairs Report, and the Appropriations Report.
There are no committee reports. You're just to the bill, Representative.
All right, thank you for that, Madam Chair. This is a great bill, folks. I think one of the greatest honors that we can render for those that have served the country is when they're laying to rest. So essentially what this bill does is allows veteran service organizations that supplement and that perform these ceremonies when it comes to burials, it will allow them to receive up to a $75 stipend for those that perform these events. So, and just a little tidbit or side note that I think is really cool about this bill is if sometimes volunteers from local high schools will come and play taps or will play for the event, and if the VSO so chooses, it allows the entire stipend to go to the bugle player. So I urge an aye vote.
Representative Lynch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not many people in this chamber have had the honor of presenting the flag to the mother of a deceased soldier. I unfortunately have had that privilege, and I have to tell you that that ceremony in itself means so much to these families that have given the ultimate sacrifice in the death of their family member. And this bill is a very simple way for us to give some appreciation to those that perform those ceremonies. It's $75 for every time they do one of these, and basically it is paying for their gas money. This is the least we can do. I wish we could do more, but this is a good bill. Vote yes.
Is there any further? Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a former commander of a VFW post in this state, and having served on funeral details in eastern Colorado, recognizing our veterans and knowing the importance of honoring those who serve this country to keep it free, to allow us to do what we do in this chamber and in the House chambers of all 50 states. I will tell you that this is one small step to recognize those who serve on those funeral details. Earlier today, I told you I was a member of the Colorado Army National Guard, and I have worked with and participated in these events. And these young soldiers that volunteer to be on these funeral details, that travel anywhere in the state when they are called, on call, 2 to 3 individuals. In almost every case, but not always, young enlisted soldiers who take time away from their civilian jobs to perform this duty out of respect and honor to those members who go to meet their Maker. That is a sacred responsibility. To the bill sponsors, I say thank you, because you, as veterans, recognize this responsibility. But let me remind you that less than 3% of our population now serves in the military and understands that sacrifice and commitment. But for those young people that step up and do this, this bill and that $75, which is a token for the commitment they make, is something that I am a resounding yes to support. And for those young people that do this, the Colorado Army National Guardsmen that serve in this unit down in Fort Carson, and for the NCOs, the non-commissioned officers that manage that unit, and for the officers that are appointed over them, I hope that this bill shows that the Colorado General Assembly does not forget and will never forget the sacrifice that service members make. I am very proud to stand here and give a resounding support, and I encourage everybody to vote yes on this particular bill.
Representative Neville.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. I just wanted to come down here as one of the few no votes in committee. I wanted to explain why. Look, when I had to escort one of my fallen soldiers out to Tennessee, it was actually the Tennessee National Guard who came out and did the funeral, and they were absolutely professional, polished, clean, wonderful. And I do think that this should remain a professional job. Just like when I was on active duty, we had to do several different funeral details to honor those who were lost, and I think that that should remain with those professional duty services. So that I do understand and respect the intent of this bill. I just think if we're doing anything, we should be making sure that we're making sure the Colorado National Guard is picking up this duty in a professional manner.
Seeing no further discussion on Senate Bill 15, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 15. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Senate Bill 15 is passed. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of Senate Bill 21.
Senate Bill 21 by Senators Buckner and Heisey, also Representatives Young and Carver, concerning the enactment of the Audiology and Speech Language Pathology Interstate Compact and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 21-021 and the committee reports.
You move the Appropriations Committee report and the Public and Behavioral Health Committee reports?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, to the Appropriations Committee report.
In the Appropriations Committee, they gave us money, asked for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the Public and Behavioral Health Committee report. Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the Public and Behavioral Health and Human Services Committee, we added an amendment to address the issue that arose with this interstate compact. When criminal background information is shared, the FBI had contacted us that they need some additional provisions to ensure confidentiality and that that data is protected. And that was the amendment. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Public and Behavioral Health Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Public and Behavioral Health Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The committee report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, what this bill does is it adds Colorado to the Interstate Compact for occupational licensing for audiology and speech language pathology. And when you're talking about occupational licensing and trying to facilitate those with out-of-state licenses and their ability to practice their profession in Colorado, historically, we've worked reciprocity agreements one state to another. But the more efficient way, and the way Colorado has gone and many other states, is to join interstate compacts so that you have groups of states that are going to recognize each other's occupational licensing criteria. And that's what this bill does. The importance of getting it done this year is so that Colorado can participate in the interstate compact rulemaking that will occur later in the calendar year. I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
And with you.
I just want to highlight some of the benefits of compacts. This will address the increased demand for audiology and speech and language services. And this address allows both telehealth and in-person practice across state lines. And it, as a result, increases access to client, patient, and student care. It facilitates a continuity of care, and it promotes cooperation between the compact states, resulting in high consumer protections and a high standard of care. One of the really salient things that we can't forget when we look at these compacts of how it helps our military families, as they have many transitions from state to state. We have consistently heard from them that it allows them to maintain their profession during all these moves. I urge an aye vote.
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also urge an aye vote on this bill. There is a highly decorated speech pathologist in Arizona who's been practicing for a great number of years, is now a tenured professor at Arizona State University, who happens to be my mother. And I haven't seen her in about a year and a half now. I'm going to get to see her again pretty soon. But anything that brings Arizona speech pathologists back to this state, where I get to see my mother and give her a hug finally after a while, I'm pro. So thank you so much for this bill, and let's bring it home.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 21? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 21. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Senate Bill 21 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of Senate Bill 58.
Senate Bill 58 by Senators Story and Quorum, also Representatives Woodrow and Larson, concerning alternative principal programs and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did we amend it in committee? I move Senate Bill 58 and the Appropriations Committee report.
There is no committee reports, so you can just move the bill.
They gave us money in the probes. Okay, never mind. Then very well. Then to the bill. Members, so this is Senate Bill 58. This is a great bill, big priority for the BOCES Association. So there was a program that we had been running for years as a state, where BOCES were allowed to stand up alternative principal licensure programs. This was commonly utilized by smaller districts that didn't have the resources to stand up their own principal licensure programs. It's very critical, particularly for smaller districts, to be able to get their principals licensed. There was a regulatory hiccup where the department decided that, in fact, we should not have been doing this program for many years, even though we were. So this bill simply says we can continue to do the program that has been successful for so many years. And we heard in committee that it is very much critical to our rural districts' ability to recruit and retain principals. And I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Woodrow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to quickly say, members, that I usually make it a point not to agree with Representative Larson on much, but that's just how good this bill is. It helps recruit and retain rural principals. That's important. It's important for a city boy like me to understand that as well. Good bill, vote yes.
It's not hard to disagree with Representative Larson.
It's very hard.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 58? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 58. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Senate Bill 58 is passed. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of Senate Bill 64.
Senate Bill 64 by Senators Garcia and Cook, also Representative Mullica, concerning criminalizing retaliation against an elected official and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the House Judiciary Committee report and the Appropriations Committee report.
Would you like to also move the bill?
And I move Senate Bill 64.
Great. To the Appropriations Committee report.
They appropriated the money, Madam Chair.
Seeing no further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The Appropriation Committee report is adopted. To the Judiciary Committee report, Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the Judiciary Committee, after some robust conversations, we wanted to make sure that we were being as narrow as we can with this bill and focused on really what we wanted to focus on. And so we stuck with credible threat language, but we took out harassment language, which was a little more broad, and wanted to make sure that we kept it narrow so that we didn't impede on any First Amendment or political speech.
Seeing no further discussion on the Judiciary Committee report, the question before us is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The Judiciary Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I bring this bill to you because I think that a lot of us would agree we have a problem. As elected officials, we are elected to do a job, and that's to represent our constituents and to make sure that we're being a voice for our constituents. We're not elected to be physically attacked or to be threatened or to have our families' lives threatened. And this is exactly what happened in my case. I have a history of maybe running some contentious bills in this building, but they're bills that I believe in, and they're bills that are a part of my convictions. And I ran a bill, and for running that bill, I had I was threatened with having my house burnt down with my children inside of it. That's when I decided to run for this position. That's not why I ran. I didn't run to put my family's life in jeopardy or to put their safety in jeopardy. I ran because I cared about my community and because I wanted to make my community a little better, and because I wanted something better for my children. And I'll never forget when this was happening, we drive up the street, and police were outside the house making sure the house was all right. And my son says, what are the flashy light guys doing outside of our house, Dad? And I didn't know what to say. And I'm not the only one that this has happened to in this room. I'm not the only one that this has happened to in this state. And we have to be better. We have to be able to have those difficult conversations. We have to be able to have those conversations with our constituents that are not easy. But we have to also be able to do a job and not worry about our family's safety. We have to be able to do this job and not worry about our safety. And that's what we're trying to do with this bill. That's what we're trying to do, is to try to thread that needle. And that's what I think we have done, to make sure that we're doing everything we can to change that behavior, to do everything we can to make sure that if somebody disagrees with us, have that conversation, have that conversation with us to be able to tell us that they're not going to vote for us next time. That's appropriate. It's appropriate to even, maybe get a little heated, but it's not appropriate to come to somebody and say, I'm going to burn your house down with your children inside of it because of a bill that you ran. That's not appropriate. I don't care the letter next to your name. I don't care what your views are. That's not something that we can allow to happen. That strikes at the core of our democracy if we decide to allow that to affect the policy that we're running. And I want to be clear, because we do have laws on the books to make sure that we're not unduly influencing elected officials, that we're not, that if we're menacing or that we're harassing. We do have laws on the book, but we don't have anything talking about retaliation. And I want to be clear with that. And we had that discussion in Judiciary Committee to make sure that that's what this is focused on, is that retaliation piece. And I appreciate your support. I appreciate everyone listening to my story and hopefully understanding where this bill is coming from. But it's not just my story, because this is happening all over the place, and this is happening at multiple levels of elected officials. And we need to stop that behavior, and we need to do everything we can to deter it. And that's what we're trying to do with Senate Bill 64. We are threading that needle and making sure that we can change this behavior to allow our elected officials to do the job that they were elected to do. And I ask for your yes vote.
Is there Representative Gray?
Here's what I'll say, folks, is thank you, Madam Chair. God bless you if you've never come to work in this building scared. Like, God bless you if you've never come to this building scared about what could happen to you while you're here that day. I'm saying that people come to this building scared, and it's not just elected officials. It's our nonpartisan staff. It's our partisan staff. It's folks who work outside the glass. And I'm saying you can vote against every single bill I ever bring up in this place. But I might vote against every single bill that you bring up in this place. Nobody should walk into this building scared. People who step forward in public leadership shouldn't have to do it in personal fear. They should be able to vote however they want to. They should be able to express whatever ideas that they want to. But they shouldn't have to do it for fear that something bad could happen to them in this building. And that's not the first brave person I've stood behind while they've given a speech like that. It's probably not going to be the last. But just say, I support this piece of legislation, and you can disagree with me on every single piece of policy, but I will protect you, and let's protect each other. Thank you.
Representative Pico.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I agree with everything that you said, but I've got some hesitation on this on one respect. Aren't all these things already criminal actions? So are we going to criminalize something that is already a criminal action? I mean, I've been a target as well. I think many of us have, and down on City Council, there were some pretty tense times as well. So that's kind of the question. My reservation about supporting this is that. Are we going to just add something that is already a crime?
Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Pico, for the question. Yes, we obviously have assault and menacing and even unduly trying to influence an elected official on the books. What we don't have is the retaliation piece. And I think what we're trying to do here in this bill is there was already a piece of statute in regards to judges and DAs that makes it a more aggravated offense. And that's what we're really trying to do here, is to make that a more aggravated offense, to really try to deter some of that behavior. But there is nothing in current law that we could find in regards to the retaliation piece, which was something that we wanted to address. And again, that aggravated piece makes it a deterrent, trying to deter this type of behavior.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill? Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Esteemed colleagues, I want to highlight that the bill sponsor and I have some things in common. The first thing, we both grew up in Colorado. The second thing, we both went to high school in Colorado. The third thing, we played football in Colorado and loved the sport. And we played hard and we hit hard. The fourth thing, we serve in the state legislature as representatives. We've also served on Public Health Committee together and have formed a strong relationship. But now we have another thing that we have in common. You see, in the last week, because of heavily charged racial rhetoric, because of misunderstanding, we now have the fact that our lives have been threatened in common. We have the fact that our families have been touched in a way that they should not be touched for the job that we pick. And that job that we pick is to represent our people the best way we can. So now my brother here and I have that in common. When people say they're going to, and I won't use the words because they are racially charged.
Can we stay to the bill, Representative
ma'am.
Holzer?
The retaliation and the title of this bill and what this bill states is that elected officials should be protected, and it should be a Class 4 felony if your life has been threatened. If someone says they want to seek you out and harm you, if someone says they want to seek you out and kill you, if someone reaches out to your family and says they are going to harm their father because he serves in this capacity, that is not okay. It is not okay to have those threats. It's not okay for other colleagues in this chamber to have to suffer through that punishment and drag our families through that distress. So I rise in support of this legislation for the many things that the bill sponsor and I, unfortunately, now have in common.
Representative Hanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I find this to be an interesting bill. I'm very interested in considering it. I don't know that it addresses the lion media and the yellow journalism that has anything to do with the perpetuation of this.
Representative Hanks, can you please stick to the bill? Let's not impugn any motives. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think I'm impugning anybody to say the media's lied and it's
Representative
yellow. Thank you.
Hanks. Representative Lynch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill, I am the only Republican that voted for it in committee. After the amendments and some of the things that we addressed and fixed in the bill, it's a good bill. I don't think we should be treated any special way versus the people we represent. And that's the thing that initially bugged me about this bill. And we fixed most of that in the amendment phase. But I will say in this toxic political environment that we're in the middle of, literally in the middle of right now, I see no reason why this sort of legislation is due and it's appropriate. We should not feel threatened and we should not feel in danger by going out and trying to serve our communities. So I am a firm yes on this bill. Thank you.
Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also rise in support of this bill, having been threatened myself after being elected to this body. But more importantly, I do want to draw members' attention to other elements that are currently in statute. For example, we have a similar treatment of our judges. And that's because if you threaten or intimidate a judge, that's an attack on our judiciary. We also have similar laws when it concerns law enforcement. That's because if you threaten or intimidate our police officers or our sheriffs, that has a chilling effect on the execution of our laws and the enforcement of our laws. Same way should be true with the legislature. If you're allowed to threaten
Members,
and
if you have any conversations, please move it out to the sides. We're on the final bill of the hour, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And same should be true with the legislature. If you threaten or intimidate members of the legislature, that has a chilling effect on the people's representative democracy. And if individuals are so successful in their threats that policy has changed, now we've just given in to thugs and bullies, and we should be above that. These are threats that don't necessarily come from the fact that any of us could be victims of crime. These would be threats designed from our job here as legislators, designed to be retribution for bills that we've sponsored or bills that we've carried, or to stop us from carrying or sponsoring or voting a certain way. And that clearly has an impact on our democracy and should not be tolerated. So I appreciate this bill, and thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Representative Buckenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have concerns about this bill. And the reason I have concerns about this bill is I represent a large group of rural Coloradoans in my district. Sometimes they're rough talking, and I want to hear them. And I do have to listen and hear them. And I've also learned that sometimes we have folks in this legislature who are very sensitive to rough talking individuals. And that's a big gray area. It's like when you become a law enforcement officer and you have to tolerate folks who sometimes don't say things in the most gentle manner. And you have to listen. And I believe our current laws adequately protect us. But some of my constituents can come up and talk to me in the manner that they talk to people, and I understand, and other people can be threatened. I don't know where you draw that line. And I just don't think that this bill is necessary at this point. If somebody took steps towards harming a legislator, the law already protects us in that case. If you can't stand in front of a group of people who are upset over a particular bill or a policy position that you have taken, call you a crook, shake their fist at you, tell you that you're going to get thrown out of office, then I think that you have to evaluate. You have to evaluate what role you're playing here. If you walk into this building and you're fearful of the people that you represent, you have to evaluate your position of why you're here and if this job's for you. It's not an easy job. So I'm concerned. I believe there's a big gray area here. I think there's an area that opens the door to a lot of abuse. And for that reason, I have concerns about the bill. I'll let it go at that. Thank you very much.
Seeing no further discussion on Senate Bill 64, Representative Valdez-D.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the bill sponsors for bringing Senate Bill 64 forward. You talk about a lot of different words, a lot of different things, and as an elected official, yes, I've been threatened, not only this year, but my first year here as a state representative. Is it easy? Yes, it hurts. It hurts every day. Even this morning, as I was walking into the Capitol, I questioned myself. And I asked why. Why do I keep pushing forward?
Why do I keep coming in? Because threats do hurt. Not only mentally, physically. And as in the bill, it says an elected official or a member of an elected official's family. And when threats are also put forth towards your family, it hurts also, twice as hard. You know, it's not easy at all, and just, you know, as words come forth here and presenting this bill, I stand with the bill sponsor on this bill. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion on Senate Bill 64, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 64. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Senate Bill 64 passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The committee will rise and report.
The House will come back to order. Mr. Gregorio, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report is under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1007 is amended. House Bill 1094 is amended. House Bill 1194 is amended. House Bill 1198 is amended. House Bill 1215 is amended. House Bill 1243, House Bill 1257 is amended. House Bill 1261 is amended. House Bill 1268 is amended. House Bill 1273 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered and engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 15, Senate Bill 21 is amended. Senate Bill 58, Senate Bill 64 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered and revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Assistant Majority Leader Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House adopt the report of the Committee of the Whole.
You have heard the motion. There is one amendment at the desk. Mr. Gregorio, please read the Carver Amendment L022 to House Bill 1007.
Representative Carver moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee, not adopting the following Carver Amendment L022 to House Bill 21-1007 to show that said amendment passed and House Bill 21-1007 as amended passed.
Representative Carver.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the Carver Amendment to the Committee of the Whole and ask for an aye vote.
That amendment has been properly moved and displayed. Is there any further discussion on the Carver amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole? Seeing none, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members, please proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
No.
Representative McLaughlin votes no. Uh-oh. Representative Larson. Representative Larson. There. Ooh. Representative Larson is excused with a $11 fine. Please close the machine. With 23 aye votes, 40 no votes, and 2 excused, the Carver amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole is lost. There are no more amendments at the desk. The question before us is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Larson, an $11 fine. I know. Remember, it goes to a good cause for the staff. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes.
Adrian.
Representative Ricks, Representative Benavides. Please close the machine. With 40 aye votes, 24 no votes, and 1 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to lay over the balance of the special orders calendar to tomorrow's general order calendar for May 12th.
Seeing no objection, the special orders calendar will be laid over to the general orders calendar according to the Majority Leader. Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for consideration of Senate Joint Resolution 16.
Seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order for immediate consideration of Senate Joint Resolution 16. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to Senate Joint Resolution 16.
SJR 21-016 by Senators Lundin and Winter, also Representative Gray, concerning the designation of the Interstate 25 Bridge over 17th Avenue as the Richard R.J. Lawrence Bridge.
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would also add that Representative Baisley is going to be joining me for this resolution. I'd move SJR 16 and ask that it be read linked.
Mr. Gregorio.
Whereas Richard R.J. Lawrence was president and CEO of Lawrence Construction, a family-owned company founded in 1924 and headquartered in Littleton, Colorado. And whereas R.J. Lawrence was a fourth-generation Coloradan, born in Denver, Colorado, to Earl Roger Lawrence and Betty Jo Otto Lawrence, along with siblings Barbara Jo and William Roger. And whereas R.J. Lawrence graduated from Arapahoe High School in 1974, graduated from Colorado State University in 1978, and earned his professional engineering license in 1984. And whereas, in 1982, R.J. Lawrence married Polly Peterson, and they had 2 children, Anne Kathleen Lawrence and Scott Roger Lawrence. And whereas, in 1995, R.J. Lawrence took over managing Lawrence Construction full-time and worked both in the field and within design partners to ensure the best outcomes for construction projects across Colorado. And whereas R.J. Lawrence was the president of the Colorado Contractors Association in 2011 and was the Colorado Contractor of the Year in 2013, and he was a founding member of the Rocky Mountain Minority Contractor Association to help the industry be more inclusive. And whereas R.J. Lawrence successfully pioneered fast-track and design-build technologies that have been well received in the construction industry. And whereas in 1996, he pioneered the 48-hour bridge, using precast concrete to replace a bridge over Mitchell Gulch in Douglas County in 48 hours. And whereas Lawrence Construction often worked on notable projects in Colorado, including environmental reclamation work and Interstate 25 Bridge over 17th Avenue. And whereas this bridge, sometimes called Bronco Bridge, showcases value-engineered precast concrete arches honoring the history of the original steel arches. And whereas R.J. Lawrence pioneered precast pre-stressed curved U-tube girders to enhance bridge design and construction. And whereas the E470 flyover bridge was the first in the world to have precast curved U-tube girders spliced on the ground and set on piers. And whereas the pre-stressed curved U-tube girders used to build the elevated interchange in Trinidad, Colorado were the first in the world. And whereas R.J. Lawrence was the first to build U-tube girder bridges for the Nevada-Tejon interchange in Colorado Springs, saving the state hundreds of thousands of dollars on the project. And whereas when R.J. Lawrence proposed building curved precast pre-stressed U-tube girders, he was told it couldn't be done, and he proved them wrong through engineering. And whereas R.J. Lawrence was known for his saying, "You can't hardly," and where R.J. Lawrence was a pioneer for Colorado's highways and infrastructure, he was a contractor who inspired innovation through outside-the-box ideas that have helped to drive Colorado's infrastructure to new levels. R.J.'s ideas have shown what is possible in Colorado heavy civil construction and beyond. And whereas R.J. Lawrence was always proud to be a Colorado contractor and built some of Colorado's best infrastructure projects. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 73rd General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that the Interstate 25 Bridge over 17th Avenue be officially designated as the Richard R.J. Lawrence Bridge, that the Colorado Department of Transportation may accept and expend gifts, grants, and donations for the purpose of the initial placement of signs on either side of the bridge for the Richard R.J. Lawrence Bridge, and that the Colorado Department of Transportation may explore a cooperative agreement with the City and County of Denver for the maintenance of the markings for the Richard R.J. Lawrence Bridge. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint resolution be sent to his wife Polly Lawrence, his children Ann Lawrence and Scott Lawrence, his siblings Barbara Joe Hadley and William Roger Lawrence, Lawrence Construction, Greg Rees, designer of the Bronco Bridge, the City of Trinidad, the Los Animas County Commissioners, the Colorado Contractors Association, and John Elway, President of Football Operations for the Denver Broncos.
Representative Beasley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, have a seat, you guys. We'll have more opportunity. So R.J. Lawrence was a friend and a neighbor, and I drive past Lawrence Construction twice every day on my way to the Capitol on the way home. It's over in the Sterling Ranch area. It's now kind of grown up around where Lawrence Construction has been for quite some time, certainly before I moved out in the area in '89. So RJ, y'all know him, looks like a construction guy, big guy, and very friendly, good, smart man, and very involved in the community. He was district captain for our area. And I got to say, my strongest memory of RJ was when I was serving as chair of the Douglas County Republicans. RJ bid and won a dinner over at the chairman's house, and we just lagged on and on trying to find the right time. And he just came up to me once and said, "I want my dinner." So we had him dinner. So he and Representative Lawrence came over for dinner and had a lovely evening with them that evening. That's my strongest memory of RJ. We miss him badly, and this is deeply deserved. And I'll turn this back over to my colleague, Representative Gray, but let me just finish with saying what an honor it is to succeed Polly Lawrence in this position. Thank you.
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did not know Mr. Lawrence well, but what I do know and have learned in this job is that building infrastructure is hard, and finding ways to do it is hard, and finding new ways to succeed at it is hard. And I know enough to know, having been doing this for a little while, how much of a pioneer that he was in that. And there are bridges that wouldn't exist if it weren't for Mr. Lawrence. There are roads that wouldn't exist if it weren't for Mr. Lawrence. And we all benefit on it. You never notice the road that you're driving over when you're driving on it. You definitely notice the road or the bridge that isn't there when you really need it. And he's one of the pioneers in our state to do that. And I would be remiss if I did not. And I'm very honored to recognize his wife and our former colleague, Representative Polly Lawrence, who is with us here today, in honoring her husband.
Mr. Minority Leader McKeon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So I used to sit back actually where Representative Baisley sits, and then I sat next to Dan Thurlow, and then on the other side of Dan Thurlow was Polly Lawrence. And if I'm to follow our rules of decorum and etiquette, it was Representative Thurlow and Representative Lawrence, but she's Polly to me. And I don't even remember when it happened, but we forgot each other's name at one point, and I said, "Hey, friend." And she's been, "Hey, friend," ever since. But what was amazing is knowing Polly first. And RJ had this amazing life, but he traveled in the wake of Polly in many ways. And so I got to know Polly, and I got to hear about RJ, and I got to hear about these projects that they were working on. And then I got to meet RJ, and I got to start spending time with them in the middle, usually, of political events. And I was just reminded of the fact that he would say, "This is enough of this political stuff. Let's get out of here." But he built things. And what's amazing to me is knowing the Lawrence family is an ability to watch what RJ built. He built bridges, he built lots of other things, he built big infrastructure projects. Apparently YouTube girders was a big part of this everywhere he went, but he built a family and he built a legacy. And we get the delight today of being able to honor that legacy by naming a bridge after him. But what he built was so much bigger than just a bridge or a road project or any of that stuff. He built a family, and he built a family that has somehow miraculously coped with his loss. And when I think about what RJ meant not only to that business, but as a patriarch in that world of here is what the kids are going to help with, and here's what Polly is helping with, and here is this family business that really remarkably is a product of all their love and all their passion. It's something really to stand back and think a little bit about, because we don't see that every day. We don't see that every day of that kind of synergy of everybody pushing on the same wheel. And it is remarkable. But in that bereavement, in that loss, came this amazing recognition of how effortlessly RJ was the linchpin in all of that, and how effortlessly he put together all the pieces of that family and Rep. Lawrence's crazy schedule and everything else, and still managed to do all the things that they had to do. I miss seeing RJ. I miss seeing Polly. But I will tell you that the memory of who he was lives on in his kids. It lives on in Polly. It lives on in her passion for what she does. That's a pretty great legacy to have. So I urge you to support naming this bridge after RJ. It is a testimony to what being a family, to what building something together looks like. I love you, friend.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, is there any objection to a voice vote? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 16. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Senate Joint Resolution 16 is adopted. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine for co-sponsors. Representative McLaughlin, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Majority Leader Escar. Oh, Representative Weissman.
Thank you. Judiciary members, real quick announcement. Again, today we are in our normal room, 107, two bills, Senate Bill 71, House Bill 1300. Tomorrow, we're in the big room here, Old State Library. We're adding Senate Bill 81 back to the calendar. That will be printed tomorrow morning. I've alerted members Just want to announce it officially here as well. We will then proceed to the SOMB sunset hearing. That's tomorrow. We'll see you this afternoon, 1:30 downstairs. Thanks.
Let's let the Majority Leader, do you mind laying over the balance of the calendar? Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar until tomorrow, May 12th.
Seeing no objection, the balance of the calendar will be laid over till Wednesday, May 12th. All right, now we're to announcements and introductions. Representative Michelson Janae.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Public and Behavioral Health and Human Services. We have 4 bills in front of us. We'll start at 1:30 in our committee room, and the bills are as listed in the calendar.
Representative Judah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have permission to be excused May 12th and 13th.
So approved. Representative, I have one quick announcement. Representative Kennedy will replace Representative Bacon on Judiciary for tomorrow only, and Representative Bacon will sit on Health and Insurance Committee for tomorrow only. Any other announcements or introductions? Seeing none, Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House stand in recess until later today.
Seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess until later today.